Hello and welcome to our webinar, QUMAS Cloud for EDMS, EQMS, and LMS, Integrated and Scalable. Presented today by Murtuza Vasawala, BIOVIA Director, Technical Sales, Global Quality and Compliance at Dassault Systèmes. Murtuza has been working with life sciences organizations as well as companies in other industries in areas of quality and compliance for over 15 years. My name is Michael Gans, Senior Program Manager at Dassault Systèmes, and I'll be moderating this session. Before we begin, I'd like to note that attendee phone lines are muted. If you have any questions during the webinar, please submit them at any time via the chat or Q&A windows in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll answer them at the end of today's session. And now I'd like to turn the webinar over to Murtuza to begin today's presentation. Murtuza, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. I hope to keep this exciting and interesting as we talk about QUMAS Cloud, specifically around EDMS, EQMS, and LMS. So let's go ahead and begin with background about us. Who is Dassault Systèmes? That's probably one of the first questions that people ask when they hear about us. So let me give you a brief introduction to our company. We are a scientific company, which means we produce products that help our customers make products in the science and engineering space. We are a global company, and we are driven to ensure that every aspect of your life, whether it's products that you use, products that you consume, or products that you make, are helped along and enabled with software that we make. Within Dassault Systèmes, we are organized into multiple brands, and these brands roughly equate to product portfolios. For example, SolidWorks is very widely known for 3D CAD design. But the brand that I'm specifically presenting today is BIOVIA, which you see towards the bottom left there. BIOVIA is a brand specifically focused on life science as well as energy and materials. But Dassault Systèmes operates in 12 industries, including aerospace and defense, transportation, mobility, consumer packaged goods, etc. So focusing on BIOVIA specifically, we address three key industries: the life science industry, the consumer packaged goods industry, as well as the energy and materials industry. We support these industries with a portfolio of solutions that can roughly be classified into four categories. In collaborative science, it's all about the early research at the molecular level. In unified lab management, it's about lab informatics, supporting scientists as they work with their experiments using electronic lab notebooks or manage inventory of chemical materials, or they're performing process development or formulations and arriving at methods and recipes. To process production operations, where we introduce manufacturing intelligence, being able to monitor your manufacturing process and to ensure that your products are being produced to spec, and to identify any glitches in the production process early on so batches are not wasted. And then finally, the focus of this webinar, the quality and regulatory management portfolio, which largely is about your quality and compliance in manufacturing. So with that brief introduction to Dassault Systèmes and BIOVIA and our relationships, let's spend a little time talking about the business of quality and compliance. And to give you a quick introduction, this is a great recent article or infographic that is out there from Pharma Compass. And it's really important to see, while we focus on life science, to talk about the GMP, or Good Manufacturing Practice, non-compliance recap of 2018. The FDA, as you know, monitors a lot of the life science companies, as well as companies that make drugs that are imported into the U.S. As you can see, manufacturing happens globally across the world, and inspections routinely find issues with manufacturing, issues with compliance, and the FDA issues what are called warning letters. And these warning letters indicate a deficiency in compliance, although not necessarily quality, although there is a very close correlation between non-compliance and quality, or rather lack of. So this is a great report to look at to understand some of the background behind why quality and compliance is so important. I thought I'd go into a list of key root causes of warning letters. What really drives this? And invariably, it's often the inability to prove a controlled state of documentation. Documentation is so key in the life science industry, where everything has to be documented, and users, employees, manufacturing, plant floor workers have to follow that documentation to the letter. So that's really, really key. And failure in that often leads to warning letters. The next is lack of data integrity. That's typically when paper forms are used and human error is introduced, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, and that's a common cause of warning letters as well. Upon finding issues, a typical deviation or a corrective action process is often ineffective because it's manual and paper-based. Training is also often the root cause for warning letters, where SOPs may be adequately documented, but training is sometimes deficient. And then ultimately, there's often a lack of a culture of compliance that often leads to quality issues as well as warning letters. The FDA publishes these warning letters on their website, which is often a good source to look at what issues customers have found, what have they been cited on, and something that you as your own organization can look at to ensure that you are not affected by the same. But incidentally, quality and compliance is not just in life science. It's in every industry, whether you're flying on a plane to your next city, or whether you're driving a car, or whether you're using a shampoo. Quality and compliance is in all of these products around us, and we address all of these industries, essentially the same issues, the same solutions, just applied in a different industry. There are probably different regulatory bodies that you have to comply with, and there may be slight variances in the rigor with which quality and compliance is met. But it does apply across all industries. So what are some of the typical challenges? The typical challenges that customers see, first of all, is document control. Even if you're well organized with binders, color-coded paper, etc., it is still a manual paper-based system that presents challenges. And of course, if you're not managing that paper well, you have a bigger problem. So often we find solutions that are either homegrown file shares or very expensive legacy solutions. So typical challenge number one, document control. Number two is typically training records. Training records are often manually maintained, or they're managed in a silo where different departments or different business units may have their own systems, and more often than not, they're not integrated with the EDMS, where the SOPs that the user has to train on are located. Challenge number three, quality processes are often a manual, paper-based shuffling of forms. These forms can lead to delayed analysis, forms can be lost or damaged in transit, and ultimately you're dealing with documents instead of data, which makes it very hard to analyze and trend on your quality processes. So those three challenges of document control, training records, and quality processes are the three key areas that we address in quality and compliance. So think back for a second and look at these and see if you can identify yourself with one of these. Are you or do you know someone who's a document control manager? Because they're worried about making sure that their documents are efficiently reviewed and approved, and that the correct version is always available and easily accessible to the employees that need them. Or are you a quality assurance manager to ensure that any quality issues, whether they're deviations, complaints, or audits, are adequately and expeditiously addressed to ensure that there are no repeats? Or maybe you're a regulatory affairs manager who is responsible for interfacing with the FDA or the regulatory body in the country that you operate in to ensure that all compliance issues are adequately met. Or maybe you're the training manager to ensure that anyone who operates a piece of machinery or is participating in a drug development process is adequately trained on the appropriate SOPs and processes. And then key, can you prove it? So we have solutions to address these challenges, as you would expect. In the area of document control, whether it's SOP management or any other quality assurance or quality control documents, whether it is quality system processes, corrective actions or preventive actions, commonly called CAPAs, deviations or non-conformances, audits, complaints, maybe even change controls, and then training records, which can be as simple as read and understood on SOPs and methods, or it could be a more comprehensive learning management system which takes care of job profiles, competencies, and curriculum that is assigned to a user, and they have to complete a combination of online courses, on-the-job training, take exams, and so on. The answer to all of these challenges and the solutions are the three products that we're going to talk about today: the EDMS, the EQMS, and the LMS. These are all three solutions available to you from us, and they're available on the cloud, and we'll talk about that in detail. So I wanted to start by giving you a quick preview on the EDMS and EQMS, and this has helpful annotations, so I'll voice over as well as be able to give you a chance to read the key points on this. So as with any application, it is entirely web-based, where you can sign on to the platform with your username and password. And we're going to begin this with some analytic dashboards. In this case, we're starting with a workflow status report to show you where SOPs are in their change workflow. As you can see from this pie chart, some are in the editing step, some are in the approval step. As we scroll down, you can see the actual workflows and the state that they are in, including a status list, and being able to then interact with this pie chart to be able to drill down into specific workflows based on that particular lifecycle state. Clicking through and looking at documents that are sitting in a release approval workflow, I now see that I have 3 workflows here. And it's actionable information telling me that this workflow has been sitting around for 84 days. That could be a problem. Being able to see those workflows, to be able to interact with them in this dashboard, to be able to click through and go to the specific workflow so you can take the action that is being asked of you. Once you've directly drilled down into the approval task, you're able to see what the task is. You're able to see that the document that you're being asked to approve is a training SOP. And based on this particular workflow task, you're also able to choose to approve or disapprove. But before you do that, you can see the decision details to see what task has been completed, who it has been completed by. And of course, you want to see the content first before you approve it, where you can automatically see a PDF rendition of that document as it would appear in a final state. But to help the approver approve this document, we provide a very convenient comparison to the previous version, which highlights the changes that have been applied to this document, so the approver can very conveniently see what changes have been made. Content that has been added, content that has been removed, and that just makes the approver's task so much easier when they can see exactly what the changes are and how many. And this is something that is automatically produced for the user, whether they're approving or viewing a SOP. So here we are happy with the changes. We'll go ahead and approve this with an electronic signature that meets all the compliance requirements: username, password, as well as meaning of signature. Let's take a look back at these dashboards. And the dashboards essentially help the user drive to the information that they need, the information that they need to complete. So we're now going to look at the editing section of these workflows. And I have 4 workflows here sitting in the edit step. I can click through into one of these workflows just like I did before. Instead of approval, however, in this case I have an SOP that has been checked out and I need to complete that task. So how do I do that? I can easily use drag and drop because I have this SOP on my desktop that I checked out, made changes, and I can simply drag and drop that document into the browser, and it intelligently knows what document I'm bringing in, what SOP it relates to, and what workflow that SOP is in, and will allow me to automatically check that document in. I can do that from the home page as well, where even from the home page, the application knows that it's part of the workflow and will correctly check in the correct version into the correct workflow. That just makes the life of the user very easy. We also have the ability to bring in new documents just the same way, drag and drop. Because the system knows this is a new document, it automatically launches the Create Document Wizard that allows me to then specify information about this new document. In this case, it happens to be a plant cleaning SOP, where I can then specify the document type from the document types that are available to me as a user. And then based on the document type, a lot of the metadata is either automatically filled in based on business rules, or ask the user to provide the information that they can then apply to creating this new document. So you can see how with drag and drop you can either create new documents or check in documents that have been checked out as part of a workflow. Let's come back to our dashboard. It's good to know, to get a heads up when SOPs might be becoming effective soon. That may be something that you might want to go check on training. These documents then help you look at the SOP's effective date and determine and ensure that training is actually complete. Let's go back up. One of the things that these dashboards provide is facets where you can filter and drill down on specific attributes to make these workflows more, to make these dashboards more interactive. Here's another dashboard we look at where you want to see SOPs that are due for review. Now, whenever you have SOPs that you're using in your quality management system, you always want to ensure that they're periodically reviewed. And our system ensures that every SOP that's made effective automatically gets a periodic review assigned to it that can then be surfaced in dashboards or can also send notifications to the document authors so they can go in and apply these documents into periodic review workflows. So this one, this dashboard here shows me a number of SOPs that are due for review based on a particular date range. And once again, I can use these facets to do a filter based on specific document types. So if I want to filter just on the governance and procedure documents, I can do that, and that will then filter it down for me. These dashboards, of course, can be designed and configured to show the information that you need. By clicking on a document link from the dashboard brings you right to the SOP in the application as well, where a user can then see the PDF rendition of that approved effective document. You can clearly see the content. You can see the metadata of the document, such as document name and title. We can collapse all of this metadata and then drill down into very specific details like dates, date created, date modified, but more importantly, effective date and next review date, electronic signatures, as well as any workflow history to show what workflows this particular SOP has gone through. And that's a hyperlink as well to be able to drill down into those workflows that this SOP came out of. To also be able to see the location in the hierarchy, which can be metadata driven, or it can be manually assigned depending on preference. And then control printing options, where SOPs can be printed with approved watermarks, with approved headers and footers, so that even hard copies that are issued from the system are tracked and controlled. Some other options for content, you can see it in full screen view, especially if you're looking at this on a tablet. Controlled export, if you want to copy a PDF on your desktop, you have a controlled way of doing that with permissions. And then depending on the workflow, whether you want to edit the metadata or edit the document itself in a workflow, these are all options available. And as we continue on to look at some other dashboards, we also have quality events dashboards that are not just about documents, but about deviations, about CAPAs, etc. Being able to see that on a single platform to bring it all together, that's really powerful. Same capabilities as facets, probably more valuable here because you're dealing with a lot of data-centric quality processes. Being also able to drill down, in this case into CAPA specifically, and being able to then see pie charts on the CAPA based on what workflow step those CAPAs are in, starting from initiation all the way to QA final approval and close. And being able to drill down even further into the CAPAs that are at supervisory approval stage and being able to then see the specific CAPAs in the system, which again are hyperlinks that can help you drill down directly into those CAPAs. Let's take a look now into search. Being able to type a keyword is the simplest way to search, and the user can do that by simply typing in a keyword. So we're going to do a simple SOP search, and you're able to find the documents that have the keyword SOP either in the name or description or the full text content of the document itself. You can use what we call 6W tags to do some additional filtering. I can also choose my sources. In this case, I've filtered on governance and procedure documents, and I can choose any of these 6W tags, then let me filter further based on metadata. If I wanted to only see effective governance and procedure documents, I could do that. And as you search and filter, you're able to see a search results, which you can mouse over and see details about them. You can also change the view from thumbnail view or tile view to a list view. And from this, you can directly go see this document in a browser window, so you can then use the document itself to do your work. So not only from dashboards, but also from search, you're able to get to the actual content very easily. You of course have advanced search available as well as the ability to define favorite searches. In advanced search, multiple data sources such as EDMS, EQMS, maybe even PLM or other applications can be connected in to be able to do searches across those data sources. And invariably, some of that may require some integration work. That's all possible. One of the things that we also like to point out is our unique compass navigation that allows the user to see what roles they've been assigned, and based on those roles, what applications they have access to. And these applications don't have to be just quality management systems. They could be other applications that they have to use in their work. Dashboards, EDMS, EQMS, etc. can all be available here, including other applications. In this case, we are getting into the EDMS, EQMS, and LMS through My QUMAS from the compass into the home page, where all your tasks, whether they are deviations or CAPAs, whether they're SOPs, or whether they're learning management system tasks, they're all available on the same home page. Documents specifically are organized into hierarchies, which are very familiar to users in folders and cabinet structures. These can be metadata driven, or they can be manually defined, or they can be both, allowing the user to find the document the way that they see best. And then being also able to create documents or create deviations or create CAPAs directly from the menu, driven by permissions, to be able to do that easily from the top navigation bar. From the home page, to be able to get to a CAPA action plan, for example, introduces you to the EQMS, which is a forms-driven application that provides you with logical steps in a CAPA workflow. For example, CAPA initiation, supervisor approval, problem evaluation, getting a QA approval, and then having an action plan where you actually do the work that is required to do your complete CAPA. A form has text fields, has drop-down lists, has date fields. These are all configured to a common practice available to you out of the box, or you can reconfigure this to match your needs. There is no code to write. It is all configuration through a web-based browser. Navigating through different forms will also automatically update the forms based on the input that you provide, that the user provides, and the workflow can change dynamically as well. A risk assessment grid is available as well to provide the risk and be able to get an assessment for that. Approvals can be sought from different users, including an action to update an SOP in the EDMS, essentially linking the CAPA workflow to a document workflow. When you are in an action plan, there are business rules to ensure that conditions must be met before workflow can proceed. This ensures that data integrity is not compromised. Clicking through an linked action workflow allows you to then see what document is being updated, what part of the workflow it belongs to, and be able to have these direct dynamic links to the SOP in the EDMS. This is something that's a pre-completed example, but when you're looking for documents, you have a search and browse to be able to find the document in the SOP repositories, and then be able to assign that to a Kappa workflow. So if it's a particular SOP that needs to be revised as part of the Kappa, it can be linked to the Kappa. The Kappa can then initiate a workflow directly in the EDMS using that particular SOP as the object of the workflow. Being able to link these actions to a Kappa ensures you have traceability from the EDMS workflow for the SOP to the Kappa action to the Kappa itself, which may have arisen from a deviation or a change control on its own. The status of the SOP workflow is available to you in the Kappa workflow so that business rules can ensure that a Kappa cannot proceed until the SOP workflow has finished. That connectivity is really key in ensuring that your EDMS and your EQMS are operating in sync to ensure those business processes and workflows are connected. And once that release approval is reached, the Kappa will typically continue, and the Kappa owner can then complete their Kappa action so that the Kappa can then go to a QA review and ultimately be closed out. So that kind of gives you a quick overview into the EDMS and the EQMS and how they relate to each other. Let's continue on and look at the EDMS and LMS as a preview. In this particular example, we are showing you how the EDMS and LMS interact. And while we offer our LMS solution, we also integrate with other LMS solutions. So a task for a learning module is again the same familiar My QUMAS homepage. The learning module opens when you click on the task. That learning module may be a program which has sub-modules that must be completed to complete the program training. And that takes you right to the SOP, which when finished, you can then complete an electronic signature to attest to have read and understood that particular SOP. As this is finished, the learning management system keeps real-time track of your training. You might also have to watch a video where multimedia can be made part of your training module as well. So it's not just documents that can be part of your training. It can be multimedia. It can be SCORM packages that you can import in. Or it can be on-the-job training as part of a program. When you complete these sub-modules, there might be an exam that you need to take. And this exam can be configured with any number of questions. Time limits can be assigned. Number of attempts can be set. Scores can be assigned based on weight and points. In this particular example, you're being asked for how many ways you have to view a document. In this case, all three options are available, and you've answered that correctly. that allows you to pass an exam and essentially complete a program of training. In the Career Center, you're able to see your job profile, your competencies, as well as any training gap analysis that will tell you what training modules are yet to complete based on your job profile. So that gives you a very quick preview onto the EDMS and LMS connection. Let's now take a look at how we deliver these solutions to you. And let me introduce you to Science Cloud. Science Cloud provides an integrated set of cloud solutions for highly regulated industries, including the EDMS, EQMS, and LMS that you just saw a preview. So let's talk about Science Cloud. Typically, when we approach customers with solutions, or when you go buying for solutions, there are two audiences. There's IT that really cares about the features of the product that they're providing to their business users, the servers and the infrastructure, the patches and upgrades, the technical support, the validation, very important in regulated industries, and of course the cost as well. But what do users care about? Users care about the experience. They care about business workflows. They care about easy-to-use solutions. They want faster availability of new capabilities. They want to access their content from anywhere. They want to complete their tasks from any device. They want a knowledgeable help desk, and they want to be a part of a community. So what does cloud give you? Cloud gives you those advantages. It gives you flexible licensing. It's an operational expense versus capital expense, which means IT can bring these solutions to the business users faster and easier. There's typically a lower startup cost. Ultimately, it's faster time to value, whether it's the first time you're deploying the cloud solution or have upgrades and updates coming to you. Cloud solutions will typically deliver that value faster to your users. And most importantly, it's vendor managed. That means you don't have to deal with the headaches of updates and patches and hot fixes and whatnot. You allow the vendor to manage that, again, in a still controlled, validated manner. So there are some obvious cloud advantages here. So what is BIOVIA Science Cloud? Three things. First of all, the BIOVIA Science Cloud is a full stack of solutions. EDMS, EQMS, and LMS are a big part of it, but also a big part of that full stack is an electronic lab notebook, the ability to define recipes and execute them, connect to instruments, manage laboratory tasks, samples and specifications, keep track of equipment and instruments. It is also a validated environment, which means it's got GXP, ISO 27001 certification. It has a full DevSecOps model. And very importantly, you determine the update schedule. Nothing changes in the cloud environment in your system unless you say so. And finally, it's open. That means it has interfaces to connect to other systems that might be on-premises for you, or also might be in the cloud that you might have other systems you want to connect to. Science Cloud runs on and is powered by Amazon Web Services, which is arguably the best known name for cloud infrastructure. And if you were at a typical EDMS, EQMS, and LMS architecture, you'd see something like this. 3 tiers. On the leftmost tier is a global tenant configuration for access and authentication. The middle tier is the application servers. These are single tenant to ensure that each customer has their own environment, can control their own update schedule, and that data does not touch any other customer. And there is a multi-tenant database architecture that allows for the servers and the infrastructure to have a primary and standby capability and leverage the multi-tenancy capabilities of infrastructure such as databases and networks. Now this is just an example, but based on your infrastructure and your requirements, this architecture can be tweaked and can be made to fit your IT standards and requirements. I know that on this webinar today or later on when you're listening to this recording, you might already have a part of the EDMS or EQMS or LMS or all three on your on-premises system. We can also bring your on-premises instance that you have currently to this cloud, and we can walk you through the process of doing that at a later date. So what do you get with quality management system on the cloud? All the things that you normally expect: server installation and provisioning, infrastructure updates such as operating system, antivirus, database, with verification and communication on a monthly basis. We would do the monitoring of all your servers, applications, databases and logs, likely backup with offsite storage, providing you with comprehensive issue and incident management. We would do the regular testing of backup and recovery processes, and we would maintain all the documents and logs to support a validated environment, including IQ, installation qualifications, and the change controls and CAPAs for this particular service. But again, very importantly, all updates are customer directed, performed by us, where customers are involved in the PQ as well for validation, but it is never without your permission and never without your notification. That basically leads to everybody being happy. IT, the scientists in the lab, as well as employees and workers in quality control and quality assurance. And that's really the goal for us with QUMAS Cloud. Here are some example Science Cloud customers. You'll recognize some of these names. You'll also notice that some of them are life science, some of them are consumer product goods, materials, energy, and well-known names. These are all using a number of our different solutions on Science Cloud in a cloud-based environment. So, this isn't just about a QMS though. It's about digital continuity to transform your business. What do we mean by that? Well, it's always fun to invoke Dilbert a little bit. We'll give you a few seconds to read that. So taking that cue from Dilbert, let's talk about an if-we scenario. So you have an ERP system, you have an MRP system, you have an EDMS, you have our LMS, and you have our EQMS. You're managing your SOPs, you've got your workflows, you've got your draft, effective. You send that to the LMS, you make sure people are trained on these SOPs. You're managing your deviations, your non-conformances, your CAPAs, your audits. You're managing your out-of-spec, out-of-tolerances. But what if you also had a solution that could look at your manufacturing intelligence, be able to track that data, collect that data from various instruments and processes, and automatically create OOS or OOT as needed? Now you're connecting your manufacturing to your quality assurance. What if your non-conformance could also automatically trigger raw material dispositions in your MRP so that any materials that do not meet your specifications are automatically marked for disuse and set aside or quarantined? What if you had an electronic lab notebook where you came up with your recipes and methods and got them reviewed and tested in the lab, and you published them to the EDMS so they can be then controlled for life cycle changes? What if you had a lab information management system where you store all your specifications for your materials, for semi-finished goods or finished goods? What if you could also have a lab execution system where only trained users are allowed to execute methods and perform testing on incoming raw materials or finished goods? What if you also had testing standards that you were managing that also fed into the lab execution system? All of these really lead to a digital continuity that makes your process smoother, connects these systems, reduces the risk of warning letters. And again, we're not just talking about life science. In other industries as well, this can be of significant value. So with that, let me summarize the Science Cloud portfolio that's available now. We talked about the EDMS, EQMS, and LMS at length to cover the quality, regulatory, and compliance portfolio of our products. Science Cloud also has applications for your science and the early research, including electronic lab notebooks, as well as lab informatics for materials management and method composition and execution. So these are available now, and we can help you achieve that digital continuity architecture. Let me end by inviting you to connect with me and talk about how these solutions can transform your business. Michael, I'm happy to open up to questions.
Thank you, Murtuza. That was excellent. We did get some questions that came in through the presentation, so we'll go ahead and get that kicked off. The first question is, does your cloud solution force updates on customers on your schedule?
Great question. It's a very common question when we think about cloud. The natural reaction is the vendor is going to update the software, and you might get notice or you might just see it. In our case, because we recognize that this solution is in a validated GMP environment, especially in life science, updates are always at your customer request and with adequate notification, and the customer participates in that update because of the validation activities that are involved. So in short, they're never forced on you. It is always at the customer's request.
Great. The next question that came in, is there a non-cloud-based solution for security-conscious management?
In fact, there is. We offer the same solutions available for on-premises. And in fact, if you do have an on-premises system from us, or you choose to go on-premises, we offer a very convenient and easy path to move from on-premises to cloud if you so choose at a later date.
Excellent. The next question, please discuss the validation procedure for the EDMS, EQMS systems. Is there a built-in procedure for validation, or are the systems configurable such that the validation procedure is more detailed?
So typically we provide all of the validation materials, IQ, OQ, PQ scripts, as well as URS, traceability requirements, and so on. All of these materials are shared with the customer at the time of implementation, and working in tandem with the customer's validation team, we develop the right process and the right set of materials that ensure that the customer's validation requirements are satisfied. So it is essentially based on what the customer needs and the extent to which the customer wants to be involved. We ensure that that partnership is delivering to that requirement.
Perfect. The next question, what steps would be needed to go from Doc Compliance 4.6 to this cloud solution?
Okay, great question. So this is a very specific customer that is looking for an existing version of the EDMS, also known as Doc Compliance, to the cloud. So we would launch a project with you to first assess what versions you have, in this case 4.6. When we set up a cloud environment for you and we start the project, we will set up a development environment for you with all the latest software, latest versions, and then essentially validate the development environment with your current data, and then develop a production environment with also the current versions. Because the dev environment has been validated with the latest version and your existing data, we can then move that data to a production environment. In a sense, you are migrating your on-premises older version to the latest version in the cloud. And we will outline those steps with you once we have a project kicked off, and you'll be able to see deliverables and timelines and the steps involved.
Great. The next question, we already have an LMS. Can your EDMS integrate with that?
In fact, yes. We have customers who have integrated with other LMS systems. So it's one of the common integrations that we have done, and that's certainly possible.
Perfect. The next question, is validation available for all this apps on Science Cloud?
In fact, it is.
Correct.
Depending on the application itself, we do have materials and validation available for the other applications as well.
Great. The next question, how do you protect my data from other customers' data in the cloud?
Great question. So you'll often hear terms like single tenant, multi-tenant, and on one extreme, you have single tenant where a customer has all of their own servers, all of their own databases, all of their own applications, all of their own authentication, as well as infrastructure services. And on the other extreme, it's multi-tenant to the nth degree, where all the customer's data is essentially in the same database, protected, but still in the same database. We've taken a middle-of-the-road approach, where we want to ensure that the customer's data and the customer's application are truly single-tenant. And then the infrastructure, like the servers, the physical servers, the operating systems, the authentication services, etc., can be multi-tenant or global tenant to ensure that we provide that level of security and confidence to the customer that the data is not shared. At the same time, leveraging economies of scale, the infrastructure that can be multi-tenant. Usually we end up with a detailed discussion with the customer directly to explain some of the nuances of that, but hopefully that answers the question.
Perfect. We have a few more questions here and a couple minutes left. Can I use the EDMS outside of quality and compliance as an enterprise content management system?
Absolutely, and we wouldn't love anything more than for you to use our EDMS throughout your enterprise for managing not just SOPs, but really any document. Could be used by HR, could be used by marketing, can be used by finance, can be used by facilities management. So it's truly an enterprise EDMS. Great question.
Perfect. The next question, how do you integrate with an Active Directory?
So one of the common authentication linkages is with a single sign-on system. So we support SAML, which is a standard for integrating with other single sign-on systems, which you may have on-premises or you may have in the cloud. And we have examples of customers who have integrated with a customer's on-site or on-premises Active Directory or any other single sign-on service that they have in the cloud. So again, we can provide some of those technical details more specifically to you.
Perfect. Another question that's come in, is it easy to move from on-premise solutions to the private cloud for a customer? I think maybe detailing a little bit more of the process from going on-prem to the cloud.
Sure. It's easy because we've done it, and it's easy because we know how. The specific steps and process, we would certainly engage with you directly to explain the steps. But the basic process is where we assess your current environment in terms of understanding the versions that you have. And then we identify the differences between the version you have on premises and the latest version to estimate the upgrade process and estimate the migration process from your current on-premises environment to the cloud environment, preserving your data, preserving your workflows, and then being able to provide for validating the development environment first, and then being able to validate the production environment, and then doing a cutover when it's time to go live. So we'd look forward to meeting with you directly and walking you through that process.
Great. We had a question, and Martuza, feel free to let me know if you'd prefer to address this directly, but one of our viewers was wondering about kind of the comparison on pricing between the on-premise solution versus the cloud.
Oh, that's definitely something we want to do individually and directly.
Yep.
But I think the important aspect to note here for not just the viewer who asked the question, but for everybody, is we offer choice. We offer choice on-premises, we offer choice on cloud, and we offer these the different financial models as well, because we recognize that there isn't always a one-size-fits-all.
Yep.
So we're to connecting with that viewer directly.
Perfect. Yep. And it looks like the last question we have in here, can EDMS or EQMS provide segregation of repositories for a company with multiple sites?
Indeed, we can.
Perfect. All right. Well, that is all the questions that we've received. I think it's clear that the audience found this information very useful and interesting. Martuza, thanks again for your time and expertise today. We look forward to the next session.